Welcome back. My name is Ned. I am a technical evangelist at Caspio, and in this video I will teach you how to create a dashboard using Caspio's easy-to-use visual application builder. Let's begin. What we're going to do is take this Excel file that contains approximately 600 rows of sales data, and we're going to import this file inside Caspio, and when we build all the interfaces, we're going to have this dashboard created by the time we're done with this video. I also have a sample web page created for us where we're going to be embedding each of these interfaces into. So let's begin by importing that Excel file. Keep in mind this will be a fast-paced video. All of the files that you see in the video are available for download, so you can follow along and replicate what you see in the video once you download the files. You can also import the completed application into your account if you don't want to actually follow the video, but I would encourage you to actually follow along and try to create this yourself because that is the best way to learn how to use the Caspio platform. To begin, all you need to do is click on this link New App. And very simple, begin by importing data. Let's give it a name. I'm just going to call it dashboard, something very simple. We're going to locate that file. It's called sales data. We'll hit next. And what you'll notice in the background, Caspio is creating the application container and it's in the midst of uploading that data file. So now we have to go through the import wizard. So let's hit next. Here you have a couple of different actions that you can apply as you import data into Caspio. You can create a brand new database table. You can replace an existing table that you already have inside your account. You can append new data to your existing table. You can update design or you can update specific entries from within the table, and you can also update design. Here's the table that we're importing from Excel. This is the Excel file, and since I'm importing this for the very first time, I'm going to use create new, and I'm going to keep the same naming as I have it in Excel. We're going to hit next. On this screen, Caspio gives you the sample data set that you're importing. You can rename a field name if you'd like. Underneath that, you can include or exclude if you don't wish to import a specific column, and then you can also change the data type for each one of your fields. The only data type that I'm going to change is the date field because this is dates, and I'm going to change that from text 255 to a date and time. And when you're done, just click on the import button. It should only take a couple of seconds. Once the data is imported, you'll see a confirmation message, and as soon as you close that screen, Caspio takes you inside the framework of that application. You're going to see these objects on the left-hand side, and you're going to be using these objects to build your dashboard or any other application that you build inside your account. If you want to locate the data that you just imported from Excel, go to the Tables object, and here you'll be able to find that table. You can click Open to view the data. Just like in Excel, you can click on each cell to make modifications and to manipulate the data. If you would like to change the field names, you can go to Table Design, and here you can rename a field to something else. You can delete a field. You can introduce a new field to your database table, and you can also change the data type depending on what kind of information you're storing inside that field. Now, I do want to point out that Caspio is a full-on database platform. You can have multiple tables created. You can have primary keys, foreign keys. You can establish relationships between your tables. For example, you can do a one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, depending on how your data is related. And if you go back out to the tables menu, once you have at least maybe 5 or 10 or 20 tables, you can go to the relationship screen, and here you can include all of your tables. You can move them around, and you're going to be able to drag your primary keys to foreign keys to understand the schema and how your database application is related. Now, to begin building all the charts, pivot tables, and all the interfaces that you see on the web, you're going to want to go to the Data Pages object. Let's save the design. And very simply, click on this link, New Data Page, and this is going to launch Caspio's point-and-click data page wizard, or our visual application builder. And from here, you'll be able to see that you can build input forms, you can build reports to output data, you can build calendars, charts, and if you're a little bit more technically savvy, you can build more sophisticated and robust applications by creating HTML data pages. We're going to go ahead and begin with a very simple data page. Under Reports, we're going to build a pivot table. Looking at my live example, here's the type of report we're going to build in the next couple of clicks. So this is a pivot table. As you can see, I'm grouping my data based on the region. We have our months across the top, and we're calculating data in the middle to get the total for each one of the regions for every single month. Let me show you how to build this very quickly inside Caspio. You're going to select pivot table, and then you're going to hit next. And of course, we only have one table inside this application, so I'm going to select that to be my data source. Let's give this a name. I'm just going to call this pivot table report. I have a couple of different styles here that I can use. I have my own configured style called pivot table charts. And I'm going to use this localization that I have pre-configured for this video. Caspio does allow you to password protect all of the reports and forms that you build. We're not going to focus on that today, but we do have other videos in our knowledge base and our YouTube channel that actually teach you how to password protect your application, so only internal employees or somebody who has access to log in will be able to see these reports. We're going to hit next. And I don't really need to build a search form, even though I could. I'm just going to go ahead and filter my data based on a predefined criteria and hit next. Here you can choose your filtering field. I'm not going to filter based on any field. I'm just going to continue by clicking next. And now here's the wizard to set up the pivot table. This is for your columns. What information do you want to have appear in the column? In my live example, I have the month. So I'm going to click on the plus sign here and insert my date field. Now, as for my date field, I'm going to group that based on a date rollup. And I want to roll that up based on month. And that's the only change that I'm going to apply. For my rows, we have different regions. So I'm going to select region name. And that's all I have to do for this. And as for my values, all you need to do here is select your sales field that contains all of the revenue. And you can do no calculation, or you can show this as percentage if you'd like. I'm going to leave it as is. And next. Here you have a couple of other options. You can choose to display your grand totals inside the row. I'm not going to do that, and I also don't want to display my grand totals in the column just to keep things a little bit cleaner, but you could actually include that inside your pivot table to see what it looks like. At any point you can click on the preview button to see what you've created, and this is basically what we're looking at this point. It looks very much like the live example that I have. The only change that I forgot to make here is to turn this localization into a currency so it has a dollar value in front. So let's close the preview. Let's go back one screen, and under my values for sales sum, I'm going to format that into a custom, and very simply just apply currency. You can choose to have however many digits you want after the decimal. I'm not going to do that. Let's hit OK. And now when I hit preview, you're going to see a little bit of a difference. Now we've inserted this comma, and we also have a dollar sign in front of our figure. Let's close the preview. And at this point, I really don't need to make any additional changes. I can actually hit finish to save. And there's my very first data page. Within just a couple of clicks, I was able to build a pivot table that has a summary of all of my data from that Excel file that we imported just a minute ago. So now I can edit the pivot table. If I need to make further changes to it, I can click on preview again. Or if I'm ready to publish this pivot table to the web, I can hit the deploy link, enable status, and all I need to do is copy this snippet of code, paste that code into my website, and once I publish my web page, I will be able to see that pivot table report inside my website. Let me show you what it looks like. I will simply close that screen. I'm using Notepad++ to edit my HTML document. However, if you're using, let's say, Weebly or WordPress, it's a very easy drag and drop system. You don't have to worry about the HTML code. But because I'm familiar with HTML, all I need to do is find my placeholder where I want that data page to be embedded. I'm going to paste my Caspio code. I'm going to save my document. And once you publish this page and you look at your website again and refresh, you will be able to see that pivot table seamlessly embed into your web page. And now, as long as somebody has access to this link, they will be able to view that report. And as I mentioned before, you can password protect that where the user has to log in first before they can look at the pivot table. But we're not going to focus on that today. We're making everything publicly available. If you would like to learn how to password protect, we have other videos in our repository where you can learn how to do that. Now let's create some charts. Let's begin by creating a chart that gives me annual sales. If you look at my live example, it's a very simple line chart that shows me total revenue per year. So let's go back to Caspio and build a brand new data page. Go down to charts, and we're going to select line chart. Hit next. Based on the regional sales, that's our sales data source, so that needs to be selected here. Let's give this a name, total sales by year. I'm going to use the same style and same localization and hit next. Once again, I don't need to build a search form. Let's filter data. I'm not going to filter based on any one of the fields. We're going to hit next. And here's the configuration to create the chart. You can give your chart a title. My web page already has a heading here at the top, annual sales, so I don't really need to create a title for my chart. So I'm going to leave these two empty. I'm going to specify the height of my chart to be 250 pixels, and I'm going to leave the width as auto so it expands and collapses. So if you shrink your browser, the chart will also adjust according to the width of the browser. I'm not going to display the legend, so let's disable that. Under data source settings, you can choose to plot your data in two different methods. You can have a series from a data in a single field, or you can use separate field for each series. I'm going to do this because I don't have a need for it. For my x-axis, we said we're going to have a year on the x-axis, so I'm going to select my date field, and I'm going to group that based on a date rollup, and I'm going to select year. So it groups all my data based on the year. For my y-axis is going to be my total revenue. I'm just going to format this and change the localization to currency, just like we did in the pivot table. And for my value, all I'm doing is grabbing the field, which is the sales field, and I'd like to do a sum. And you have an option here for a marker if you'd like to choose a different symbol. Let's go with a diamond. And at this point, you can actually click preview to see what it looks like. And there's my line chart. Now, the reason why it looks so wide is because I have the width set on auto. But if you shrink the screen, it's going to adjust itself based on the width. And you'll see what that looks like in just a second. So let's close the preview, save my changes. And all I need to do is deploy this chart to my website like we did with the pivot table. So let's copy the code, go back to my document, and here's my placeholder. I'm going to paste it, hit save, go back to my website, refresh, and there's the chart. Now you can further play around with the height. If you don't want this to be 250 pixels, you can actually change this to be maybe 200 pixels. But I think the height is fine. I'm going to leave it like this and continue building the rest of the charts. The next one is sales by region. So if I look at my live example, we're going to build a pie chart. It's a very simple chart to build. New data page, charts, come down here, select the pie chart. Not going to make any changes here. Let's continue. Let's filter our data, not use any field. Let's continue. And the pie chart is very simple to configure. All we're going to do here is for category, select the region name. And for value, we're going to do the sum based on the sales field once again. And you can choose to have the data be displayed as percentage. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to format this to appear as currency like before. Hit OK, save my changes, and let's deploy it. Hit the link, enable access, copy your code, open up your website editor, and just find your placeholder, paste, save it, and let's take a look. I might have to change the height of the pie chart. Yes, I do need to change my height, and I also want to disable the label here so my pie chart appears a little bit bigger. So let's make a few modifications to it. Back inside Caspio, click on Edit. And let's go to Configuration screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the height to 250 pixels. And under Value, I will only display the data tip. And you'll see a difference what that does. So let's hit Finish. Refresh the web page, and you get to see what that looks like. You no longer see the label, but now when you hover over, you're going to see that data tip, and it actually shows you the value. What's really neat about Caspio charts is you can actually show and hide these elements if you click on the legend here on the right. If you really want to hone in on a specific region and not have to worry about too many of them on the pie chart, you can disable and enable the legend as you move up and down. Okay, so the next chart is going to be a bar chart that displays top 5 sales reps. And so let's go back to Caspio, click on New Data Page, back to Charts, and we're going to select Bar Chart, hit Next. Once again, we don't need to make any changes. I'm just going to change the name of the data page to top 5 sales reps. Hit next. No search form. Hit next again. Next one more time. And now let's configure this. Under settings, once again, we're going to disable that. For my y-axis, so what do we have on the y-axis? We have the name of the employees. So we're going to select the sales rep name. Under the x-axis, we have the total revenue. So I'm just going to change this currency like before. Hit OK. And then for my value, once again, we're going to select the sales field and we're going to do a sum. Hit next one more time. What you need to do here is simply just select your sum field and sort that Z to A. So the highest goes first and then the lowest. And I want to display only 5 reps because I'm interested in the top 5 reps. Hit finish to save your changes. Deploy once again. And you can see how simple of a process that is. Once you build a data page inside Caspio, go back to your website, paste the code, save and publish, and then when you refresh your web page, you should be able to see all of these data pages embedding. Now, once again, I forgot to change the height, so let me do that really quickly. I need to change this to 250 pixels. So back to Caspio, click Edit. And right over here under height, change that to 250 pixels just to make everything uniform and appear the same way. Refresh to verify. And there we have it. Now we can see that Alejandra is the top performing sales rep. And you can see how easy it is to build these things in Caspio in just a matter of 5 to 10 minutes. If I wasn't explaining anything, I could build this in literally just 2 minutes. That's all the time that it would take me to build this. But because I have to explain step by step, it takes a little bit longer. And the last chart that we're going to build is also a bar chart, stacked bar chart. So we're going to be displaying categories inside it. So back to Caspio, new data page, charts, and this time I want stacked bar. Hit next. And let's give this a name. Let me see what I called it in my live example, top 5 regions. So let's call this top 5 regions. No search form. We're not going to filter. And now let's configure this. Before I forget, once again, let me change the height to 250 pixels. And let me see if I'm displaying the legend here. I'm not displaying the legend, so let's disable it. Just really quickly, if you do display the legend, basically what you're doing here is displaying this legend here that you see on the right side of the chart. For this chart, I don't really need the legend, so let's go ahead and disable that. For my data source settings, we're going to select this because now I would like to plot the series. For my y-axis, we have region name. Series, we're going to actually do a breakdown based on the product name. And for my value, once again, we're going to format this as a currency. And for value, we do a sum based on the sales field. Hit finish to save the changes and just repeat the same process. Copy your code and paste it into your builder. Save, and let's have a look. And there it is. So now I can see which product is doing better than all the other products. The last thing that we're going to create, which is a little bit more technical, but it's very easy to do, is just one line of SQL code. We want to be able to grab the totals from the table and calculate them inside these boxes, as I have it exactly here in my live example. We're going to go back to Caspio, and I will need to create 3 views. Views are going to allow me to filter data from the table. Think of it like a virtual table. If I want to just filter specific information from any one of my tables, I can build a view just to limit the results based on what I want to see. So for example, the first view I'm going to build is to just filter today's sales. And I'm going to call this view today's sales. Okay, if you would like to add a space, you just need to add an underscore. But we're going to call this today's sales, and we're going to pull that data from the regional sales table that's residing inside this object. So let's just move the table to the right, hit next. And what you need to do is use the criteria tab here at the top and drag over the field element and select the date field and simply just change equal to today. And that's all you have to do. This is going to calculate any of the sales that are coming in for today's date. When you hit finish, if you look at the view, it's probably going to be empty because I don't have any sales that have been entered today. This is an older data set. Let's build a second view that filters out all the sales for this month. So, sales this month. You can have any naming convention if you'd like. I'm going to stick with that. Move the table, criteria tab, and same process, just move the field element and select your date field. And then instead of equal, we want current month. There it is. Hit finish. Let me see if the data set has any sales data for this month. And I do actually happen to have 3. Okay, so let's go back to views and set up one last view. This one is going to calculate current year. So let's call this current year from the same table. And in the criteria tab, once again move over the field element, select the date field and change equal to current year. Save your changes, and this view should have more data. Let's take a look, and we do. There are exactly 88 entries in that table that are this year in 2018. Once you set up the views, what you need to do next is go back to data pages, build a new data page, and this one's going to be a little bit more challenging to build, but I will explain exactly what I'm doing in each one of these calculated values so that you know exactly what the SQL is doing and how it's calculating the data from the actual table. So to build those boxes, what you need to do is go to Reports and select Details Data Page Type. Hit Next. Your data source table, you can select any table that you want actually, but we're going to select regional sales because that's the only table I have. And let's just call this dashboard numbers. Of course, you can call it whatever you want. For my style, I'm actually going to select dashboard totals. It's a different style that I'm going to apply to this data page. We're going to hit next. Once again, no need for a search interface. Just filter your data. Hit next. We're not going to worry about this. And then what fields do you want to choose in the details page? Put any field that you want for now and hit next. And now here's what you need to do on this screen. The first thing you'll want to do is insert an HTML block. And go to the Advanced tab and disable the HTML editor. When you disable the HTML editor, go back to Standard tab and you will now be able to enter any content or any HTML content inside this screen. And what you want to do is go back to your website template, copy whatever content you want to display in that data page. In this case, what I'm trying to do is just grab this HTML code of all these boxes and put it inside Caspio, because inside Caspio is where we're going to be able to calculate these values, and we want to feed those values inside those boxes. So all I'm going to do is grab the HTML of these boxes and put it inside that HTML block. So back to my template, and I already know what I need to grab. It's from this div. You can see all these zeros. That's the number inside those boxes, all the way up until the div. And I'm just going to copy that, delete it from my HTML template, and replace that with Caspio data page for now as the placeholder, and save. Once you copy that HTML code back inside Caspio, just paste all that code inside this screen. And you're going to be replacing these static values, zeros, with the actual calculation that's derived from Caspio. So here's how we do that. The first thing that you'll want to do is use the Insert button to add a calculated value inside this screen. For the first one that we're going to calculate is just very simple, today's sales. That's what we'll call it. You can call it whatever you want, and inside the calculated field, this box is where you need to add the SQL statement. Now, as I said, it's a one-line statement. I'm just going to copy and paste it because I already have it created. Basically, what we're doing is telling you to sum. This is the field from within the view. This is the sales field inside the view. And we want to grab the sum of all of those values from that field from this view called today's sales. Now, when you create a view, and if you want to use the view in the SQL statement, you have to prefix that with underscore v underscore. So this is very important. If you're referencing a table and not a view, then you don't need this prefix. Now, let me show you how I'm getting this text. So if I go to view, any one of them, let's go to today's sales and click on edit. Hit next. Here's that sales field. All I did was copy this text, and then inside Caspio I paste that text inside the parentheses. Here's my view name, which is also coming from the same place, today's sales. But if you're going to use the view, as I just mentioned, you have to prefix that with underscore v underscore. IsNull is a function that basically tells the system if there are no entries inside a table, or if it's blank, replace that with a number 0. At any point you can verify the formula. It's a valid formula. All the naming is correct. If you misspell the name, let's say by a letter, and you try to verify the formula, you'll see invalid formula. So just make sure that you have the correct naming for all of your fields and all of your view or table names. So just to sum it up one more time, it's selecting from this view this field, and it's totaling all of those values from that view for that specific sales field. Let's add our second calculated value. This time we're going to compute month to date. Again, I already have all of my SQL statements written, so I'm just going to copy and paste like this. Feel free to pause the video if you want to do the same thing. This time we're using this view, which is sales this month, same field. So it's the same exact statement. The only difference here is we're using a different view because we're trying to compute all the sales in the view that's filtering all of the sales for this month. Next one is going to be year to date. Also very similar, we're just using a different view here. All right, you can see I'm using current year. Let's add our fourth. The fourth one is going to calculate lifetime sales. So everything inside the table this time, because I don't have a view that's filtering all of the sales. The table accomplishes that already because in the table we list all the sales. So we're not filtering based on a specific date range. So here's my SQL for that. You can see it's very short. My table name, the field is actually called sales, and this is my table name. So let me show you my table. There's the table name, regional underscore sales. You can see it right here. And we don't need to add that prefix because we're using a table this time. And inside the table, if I look at my field name, you will see that it's called sales. Therefore, in between the parentheses, I need to input sales. Let's add our fourth or fifth. This time we're going to calculate average sale. Let's call it average sale. And paste the SQL. And you can see that instead of using sum, this time we're using AVG, which stands for average. Again, using the same sales field from the same table. So all I'm trying to compute here is average sales in the entire table. And last but not least, we will compute total sales. And I'm just going to grab the count this time. So I'm not doing a sum, I'm not doing the average. All I'm doing with this SQL is doing a count. So give me total number of sales inside that table. You can also expand upon that if you have a status field. You can tell the SQL, grab the count where status equals new or in progress. That way you're only computing or getting the count for that specific status. Now that we have all of these calculated values created, what we need to do is use them inside the HTML block. Now I'm going to move the HTML block at the very top. I'll explain why in just a minute. But inside this HTML block, everywhere you see a 0, you will want to replace that with each one of these calculated values. So let's start from the top. You will see that my very first box is today's sales. So I'm just going to replace the 0 by using the insert button and finding today's sales, which is this one here. And we're going to insert that as a number. And you can see how we replace the 0. So now when you look at the box, this will be replaced by this computed value that's coming from this calculated value here. One thing that you don't want to forget is very simple, just to format it and have it appear as currency. So we have a nice dollar symbol in front, and you can manage the digits as well after the decimal if you want. Click OK. Let me just do that very quickly for each one of them so I don't have to come back there later on. Year to date. Currency. Lifetime, same thing. And for the other two, we don't have to do that because they're not actually for the average sale we do. So let's format that. And total sales, it's just doing a count, so there's no need for a dollar symbol or any digits after the decimal. Back inside the HTML block, and let's go ahead and replace the other 5. So we did today's sales. Let's replace this 0 with month to date. Let's keep going. Year to date. And you can see how easy of a process that is. Lifetime. Then we have average sale. And the last one here is the count, total sales. Okay, so now what we need to do is add one more HTML block and move that one all the way down. And here's why. In the very top HTML block, at the very bottom of your code, what you're going to need to do here is hide all of these elements, because we're trying to display the elements inside this HTML block. Therefore, we don't need to display them twice. If they're already displayed inside the HTML block, there's no need for duplicates to show up on the screen. So to do that, we're going to add a very simple table tag, table style equals display none, like this. So just make sure you open the tag, table, and then we're doing a very basic inline style to display none. And then you're going to wrap that inside this HTML block. First, we're going to disable the HTML editor. And in the standard tab, we're going to simply write table. And now this entire section in between these two HTML blocks will be hidden. And one more thing that you want to do on this next screen is just disable this navigate to next previous record. So just do that. And let's take a look and see what this looks like using the preview screen. And that's what the calculations look like at this point. What I'm going to do next is try to embed this into my website now to see what it looks like as the final design. So I'm going to close the preview. I'm going to save my changes, deploy the code, and let's grab it. And let's go ahead and paste that where we added that placeholder. Save our page. Refresh. And there we have it. We do need to make a few more modifications. We can actually disable these digits. We don't need to display that. We just want to display that as a currency without having the digits after the decimal. And that's actually a very easy fix. Go back to Caspio, and under the localizations, just edit your localization. Go down to formatting standards. Click on number and just adjust the digits after the decimals to 0. Hit save. And now when you refresh your dashboard again, you will no longer see that decimal and also digits after the decimal. So this is how in Caspio you can very quickly put together a dashboard. The SQL statements do require a little bit of work. However, if you follow my video and if you type it in exactly the way I have it here, you are going to be able to create the same thing and get the same look and feel as I have in my final design. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at any point. Somebody from our support team will be able to assist you. And I hope that you'll be able to build your own dashboards as well for your own projects. This is just one example of a dashboard. This type of a layout can be applied to many different types of applications and industries, depending on what kind of data you're dealing with. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.